We're making cheddar cheese today, and the first thing I do is I calibrate my pH meter, and that's an optional step. And then on my cheese chart, I write what cheese we're making today. And then I also record my pHs that I want to capture, which is the starting pH, cutting the curd, end of cheddaring, and then the end of pressing. Those are the 4 pHs that I like to write. And then I also put down the date we're making it and how long it takes to age. This cheddar is ready anywhere from 2 months to 12 months, which I put the actual dates of when it'll be ready. And then I have my boiling water here with my cheesecloth that's in there. And then all my utensils are sterilized. I want to just talk to you about the starting pH of milk, and this step is completely optional, but if you want to get more into, making your cheese turn out really good every time, pH is a good thing to check. So I check the pH of my cold milk, which is 66 or 6.6 pH, which is really good. You want the cold milk to have a pH starting between 6.6 and 6.7 pH. And if it's anything higher than that, if it's above 6.8 pH, you have bad milk. So that's one way to know if you have bad milk, is to check the starting pH of the milk. And once we add the rennet and do all the ripening, our goal is to continually drop this pH. Alright, now that I have all the milk in here, and I'm doing 4 gallons of milk today, you're going to warm it up to between 80 and 84 degrees. And then you're going to add your mesophilic 2 starter. And I'm adding half a teaspoon of mesophilic 2. There's the bottle. And all you do is sprinkle it on top. And then you're going to set your timer for 3 minutes and let it rehydrate before we stir it in. Alright, it's been 3 minutes, so now we're going to stir in our culture. And you want to raise the temperature to 90 degrees. And when you stir this in, you want to count 20 strokes. And you want to stir it like this, up and around. Because you want to incorporate the bottom of the milk to the top. And you want to maintain this 90-degree temperature for 30 minutes. So again, I'm going to set my timer for 30 minutes. And you really need to watch this temperature, because I think it's going to reach 90 degrees and it'll continue to go up. So I'm probably going to have to take this pot out of this double boiler in a couple minutes once it reaches 90 degrees in about 1 degree. Alright, it's been 30 minutes, and now we're going to stir in the calcium chloride. And calcium chloride is optional. I use it because my cow is late in lactation and we're coming into the winter months. And also if you're going to use store-bought milk, that's another time where you want to use calcium chloride. And I use half a cup of cool filtered water to half a teaspoon of calcium chloride. Stir that in. Pour it into the milk and stir well. And now you're going to add your rennet, and my favorite rennet is liquid calf rennet. And you want to have rinsed off your equipment that you use for calcium chloride. You don't want to mix the two. And I've got half a cup of cool filtered water, and we're going to put in 3/4 of a teaspoon of this liquid rennet. Stir it in the water to dilute it. And you want to mix the rennet in the water just right before you mix it into the milk, because otherwise it won't be as good for you. It'll kind of deactivate it a little bit. You want to stir this in really well, and this is important. You want to do 20 stirs, and then we're going to stop the milk. And we're going to let the milk ripen for 45 minutes. So set your timer for 45 minutes. Get this all stirred in. And then we're going to stop the milk. So stop it from moving. And I take out all the equipment. Cover the milk. And we'll come back to it in 45 minutes. Alright, we're going to come and see how our curd is set. So I just put this in and see that looks a lot better. It's more of a clean, it's a harder break. So this cheese is ready to cut. Notice when I set this in, like the curd doesn't attach itself to the spatula. And what else? When you lift this in and lift it up, see, it gets a really nice break right there. So that's called a clean break, and this cheese is ready to cut. So your two options are you can cut with this ladle, and you would want to cut 1/2 inch checkerboard pattern, or I'm going to use a whisk, and this is my favorite method because it helps me get to that smaller end size curd that we're going to need. But if you use a whisk, you need to be really gentle because your curd is really fragile. So I let it go in, and then I pull it down. And it does turn on you, but you can tell where you've cut, so you just kind of follow it. And you don't want to shatter your curd, so that's why we're being really gentle with it. This looks like it's set up really nicely. Looks like it'll be a good cheese. Okay, now that we've got it cut, we want to let it heal for 5 minutes. So set your timer for 5 minutes. And this is another optional step. I want to just check to see what my whey pH is at. So I have a sterilized little dish, and you always want to take it out. I try not to check it directly in the vat just because you never know if the chemicals and stuff are still on here. So let's see how it's doing. And you leave it in here until that little timer on the left goes off. Looks like it's going to stay at 6.5, which is great. It's gone down by 0.1 pH level, and that's exactly what we want to see. That means the culture is, there we go, it's off. So 6.5 pH. That means the culture is doing its work and it's starting to lower the pH. Alright, set your timer for 30 minutes, and you're going to want to gently stir the curd while the temperature increases very slightly, very slowly to 102 degrees. So that's your end goal. And the curd at this point is very fragile. So when you're stirring, just be gentle with it. And I have put the pot back in my double boiler, as you can see, and I turned the heat on like medium temperature. And this happens really gradually. You want it to take 30 minutes to get up to temperature. I wanted to show you when you stir what kind of things you're looking for. So see, this is a big curd, so you can take your ladle and just break it apart with the side of your ladle or up against the side of the container. And a lot of times you'll have big curds that hide at the corners. So don't forget those. See, like here's one right here that didn't get cut. So I just gently put it on top and cut it. And you want to try to continuously stir really gently. Sometimes I come and go, but in general it's almost continually stirred. I've reached my temperature of 102 degrees, so I took the pot out of my double boiler. And you want to continue cooking the curds for 45 to 60 minutes. and you want to keep stirring them, and you want to maintain a temperature of 102 degrees. And I've noticed the curds a lot of times, they just keep that temperature without having to do anything else. But if you notice it going down at all, you can just pick this up and put it back in your double boiler. But what'll happen, and what's happened to me before, is I leave this in the double boiler and I don't pay attention to it, and all of a sudden the temperature's gone up to 120 degrees before I realize it. So now, instead of trying to maintain the temperature in my double boiler, I just take it out completely of the double boiler once it reaches 102 degrees, and that prevents me from overheating my curds, which you really don't want to do. It can kill your cultures. It messes up the texture of your curds. And also I want to tell you about, once your curds get to above 100 degrees, they start to mat together. So once you get to above 100 degrees, you really are going to be stirring. You need to really watch your pot. And matting together is when, let me show you one. There's one. See, this is kind of one whole glob. So I kind of shake it. And if it doesn't come apart, you can, at the side of your ladle, you can just separate it. Alright, I have a couple things to show you. I've reached my temperature and our time is up. And so I wanted to check the whey, so I took some whey out. And then I put my little pH meter in there and I wait for the little timer to go off. And this is an optional step, you don't have to do this. And you want to look for a pH before you drain of between 6.1 and 6.3. All three of my books have a different number, but it's between those two numbers. So this is great. It looks like I'm right at 6.1. Yay! Okay, so the next step is we need to do a texture test. So for the texture test, all you're going to do is you're going to lift up your curds, and with a very clean hand that you've washed with hot water and soap, you squeeze your curds together, and you want them to stay together when you squeeze them, and then you also want them to like be able to separate with your thumb. So all we're going to do is we're going to drain. We need to drain all the way from here. And there's a lot of ways you can do this. I use a 2-gallon pot because I want to save the whey. Oh yeah, you want a curd? These are your favorite thing, aren't they? Okay, now what I'm going to do is I have some hot water here. And I just like to heat up my sterilized cheesecloth and my sterilized colander. I like to warm it up because the curds are at 102 degrees. You don't have to put a cheesecloth in there, but I do it because some of these curds are small. Your goal end curd size was the size of half a peanut to a pea size. So some of those holes, the curd will fall through. If you wanted to do a farmer style cheese, you can proceed to salt this and put it right in the press. But if you want to create more flavor, which is what I want to do, I'm going to take this whole thing, I'm going to put it back in the pot, in the strainer, and I'm going to cover it with the cheesecloth. I'm going to stick a thermometer in here so I can keep track of the temperature. Cover it up. And then this I'm going to put back on top of my double boiler. And I'm going to turn it on a very low temperature because I want to keep these curds at 102 degrees. And we're going to flip them about every 20 minutes. Alright, it's been 15 minutes and it looks like we've kept our slab has stayed warm, just under 100 degrees, so that's good. And I'm going to take out our curds and all this whey down here at the bottom. I'm going to drain, I'm going to take that out, put that back in, and I'm going to invert my slab of curds. So this is the top here. So I'm just going to undo it, make it go down to the bottom. And as you can see, it's a nice big slab. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut it in half. And this is where you start stacking your curds. So I just take it and stack it on the other one. And set your timer for 15 minutes. Actually 20 minutes. And put the top back on because you want to keep that warm temperature in there. And this is where we're cheddaring. This is the cheddar process right now, keeping the curds warm while we flip them. And we're going to invert them every 20 minutes. I'm going to take this and put the top one on the bottom and the bottom one on the top. Alright, we're an hour into the cheddaring, and I wanted you to see the whey that's accumulated on the bottom, that's come out of the slabs, and you want to pour that off into the sink. You don't want to leave it sitting in whey. Alright, now we don't want to let these slabs chill too much, so you want to try to work quickly. You could put these through a French fry cutter, but it's kind of annoying using one because then you have to sterilize it and all that's a mess. It takes forever. So I just like using a knife. But I wanted you to see the texture of, kind of looks like cooked chicken breast. It's pretty rubbery. It's still warm. You want to cut it into thin strips, about maybe an inch thick. And then for 4 gallons of milk, I use a little bit under 1/4 of a cup of salt. You can use however much salt you want, but salt is important. And also, if you check the whey before we did all this cutting, the whey, you want the whey to be at about 5.4 pH, like 5.3 to 5.4 pH before you start milling the curds. This is called milling. So I'm just going to cut it this direction to make it a thin little strip. And the next step is going to be adding the salt. And we're going to mellow the salt, which means you add half of the amount of salt. And then you wait 5 to 10 minutes and you add the rest of the salt. Alright, that looks good. I like to cut it on this parchment paper because it's clean. Alright, so here's my salt. I really like flake salt. So you do about half of it and then you mix it. I'm going to cover it up and I'm going to put it back on in my warm location. And you want to set your timer for 5 minutes until then we'll add the rest of the salt. Alright, it's been 5 minutes, so then you add the rest of the salt. And stir it in. Move it around. And then set your timer again for another 5 minutes. And all the while we're keeping this warm, I still have it over my warm water, and then we cover it back up. Alright, so I've got boiling water here, and this is the cheesecloth, and that's my mold under there. And I just pour this hot water over everything, and it just gets it warm and ready for the curds, so it helps keep them warm so they can form their structure. Alright, so now I have my cheesecloth here, and I was going to show you with my cloth, the rough edge needs to go towards the inside, and that makes it easier when you're trying to get the cheesecloth off your cheese. And then you add all of the curds, cheddar curds in here. And these cheddar curds are like incredibly tasty. So your kids and your family will love them if you have any extra that don't fit in the press. And you want to try to work fast so the curds don't get cold. So I find my follower, pull this over, put that on, and then on my press I have these two propylene followers that go on like that. And then I have two springs. Alright, now the first time we push this down, we just want to push down enough until we feel the resistance of the curds. We don't want to push down really hard. We're going to push down until we start seeing whey come out here at the bottom. Set the timer for 15 minutes, and at that time we'll flip the cheese. Alright, it's been 15 minutes, so we're going to unmold the cheese, and we're going to flip it. Be in a lot of pieces because we had a very, very light weight on it. You can see all the pieces of curd. So flip it, put it back in the mold, and repack it. And this time you're going to use a little bit more pressure. And you're going to set your timer for 30 minutes. And then we're going to repack this again. Alright, we're going to repack the cheese now. And this will be the last time that we have to repack. And we're going to let it rest for 12 hours, so first thing tomorrow morning I'll come and unmold the cheese. Oh, look at that. See, it's closed really well. So you can see the faint lines of where the cheese was milled, but it's starting to close up. So this next time we put it in the press, we need to put fairly strong pressure because we want to close up all those gaps. Alright, so this is my area that I'm going to dry the cheddar. So once a day you want to flip it